What if I told you that getting a man's attention is easy, but making him obsessed with you takes something entirely different? It's not about looks, luck, or playing games. It's about a few bold moves most women overlook. Moves that shift the entire dynamic and make you the one he can't stop thinking about. If you've ever wondered why some women leave a lasting mark while others fade into memory, keep listening. Because once you understand these 5 powerful truths, everything changes. When it comes to attraction, there's a truth most people overlook. Men don't fall for a woman just because of how she looks or what she says. They fall for how they feel about themselves when they're around her. This is the key. It's not about impressing him with achievements or constantly trying to prove you're worthy. It's about creating moments where he feels like the best, most alive version of himself. You can tap into that space. You're not just another woman he dates. You become the one he can't stop thinking about. Think about the last time someone made you feel truly seen. They weren't necessarily the flashiest person in the room, but somehow in their presence you felt appreciated, valued, like you mattered. That's the exact feeling that draws a man in and keeps him coming back, because when he associates you with the feeling of being important, respected, and empowered, he starts to emotionally link your presence with his sense of self-worth. That's what makes someone irresistible, not just physical beauty, but emotional resonance. Men, just like women, have insecurities. They have doubts, fears of not being enough, worries that they're not doing enough, being enough, providing enough. When you're the woman who even subtly reminds him of his strength rather than his shortcomings, you create something magnetic. He wants to be around you, not because you're constantly stroking his ego, but because you highlight the parts of him that he's proud of. You mirror back to him the version of himself he wants to be. And this doesn't mean you need to constantly give compliments or always agree with him. In fact, obsession doesn't come from being a yes woman. It comes from being authentic and clear. When you genuinely admire something about him, let him know. When he does something thoughtful or bold, acknowledge it. Not in a fake or over-the-top way, but in a grounded, real way that says, I see you. And when something doesn't sit right with you, speak up. Men respect women who can challenge them without cutting them down. That balance, respect with honesty, is rare and it's powerful. This also means giving him space to lead, to show up, to be protective or decisive when the moment calls for it. So many women, in the name of independence, unintentionally block men from stepping into their masculine energy. Letting a man feel like he can take care of you sometimes, or letting him feel needed, not in a weak or dependent way, but in a you're adding value to my life kind of way, creates a strong emotional bond. He starts to feel like your presence brings out his natural instincts. When a man feels purposeful with you, he connects. When he feels useful, he invests. And when he feels both, he can't help but obsess. Remember, emotional association is everything. If being around you consistently brings him feelings of confidence, strength, inspiration, and even lightness or fun, he starts to crave that presence. He starts associating you with good energy, motivation, and growth. That's the kind of obsession that lasts. It's not manipulative. It's not playing hard to get. It's about being the kind of woman who reflects his best self and doing it in a way that's authentic, warm, and just a little bit untouchable. That's the energy that keeps a man not just interested, but hooked. Desire thrives in space. What most people get wrong about attraction is thinking that closeness alone creates connection. In truth, too much predictability, too much availability, and too much emotional exposure too soon can actually kill attraction before it has a chance to grow. This is especially true when it comes to men. Men are wired to be drawn toward what feels slightly out of reach, what makes them work a little harder, stretch themselves, prove something. It's not about playing games or being manipulative. It's about understanding the psychology of desire and the natural push and pull that keeps someone intrigued. Mystery is not about hiding things or being distant for the sake of control. It's about holding a little bit back, keeping parts of yourself sacred, and allowing someone to uncover you slowly, layer by layer. When everything is revealed too fast, there's no more room for curiosity. And curiosity is one of the most powerful emotional triggers for obsession. When a man feels like there's more to discover about you, that you have depths he hasn't explored yet, he stays mentally and emotionally invested. He doesn't check out because his mind is still chasing the puzzle of who you are. Now, this doesn't mean being cold or aloof. It means having your own world, your passions, your friends, your goals, your boundaries, and not folding all of that just to make room for him. When a man sees that you're not sitting around waiting for his attention, that you're not anxious for every text or craving constant reassurance, he respects that. It tells him you value yourself. You're not desperate for connection, you're choosing it. And that choice, that selectiveness, makes him value your presence more. It also tells him that if he wants a deeper piece of you, he has to earn it. Challenge in this context isn't about being difficult. It's about having emotional standards. It's about not giving your time, energy, and emotional availability to just anyone who shows interest. When a man has to meet a certain level of effort to get your attention or affection, he becomes more emotionally engaged in the process. He starts investing his time, his thoughts, his energy. And the more he invests, the more emotionally connected he feels. To basic human psychology, we value what we work for. A woman who maintains a sense of independence and self-containment, even as she flirts, connects, and shares pieces of herself, becomes unforgettable. Why? Because she represents both comfort and challenge. She's warm, but not overly accessible. She's kind, but not easily swayed. She's engaged, but not absorbed. That balance triggers a man's natural drive to pursue. And pursuit is the birthplace of obsession, not because men want to conquer women, but because the process of pursuit builds emotional momentum. It gives his feelings time to deepen and attach to something real. The key here is pacing. When you meet someone, it's tempting to let the excitement sweep you into a whirlwind. Long calls every night, texting non-stop, sharing all your stories and scars within days. But the strongest connections don't race to the end, they unfold. Letting things progress at a pace where curiosity stays alive, where a man feels just enough uncertainty to keep him reaching, is what keeps his emotional fire lit. When you become slightly unpredictable, when you have moments where you're fully present and then moments where you pull back into your own world, it keeps the dynamic fresh. It tells him you're not trying to trap him or tie him down. You're giving him space to come closer on his own. And that's when his interest turns into something deeper, something obsessive. There's a big misunderstanding around what it means to be bold in dating. Many people think boldness means chasing, overgiving, or bending over backward to prove your worth. But that's not boldness. That's fear disguised as effort. Real boldness comes from confidence. It's rooted in knowing what you bring to the table and not being afraid to show interest, speak up, or walk away when something isn't right. It's not about trying to be impressive. It's about being unshakably secure in who you are, and that kind of energy is magnetic to a man. When a woman is bold, she doesn't play games. If she likes someone, she lets it show. But she does it with elegance and calm. She might make the first move, but it's not a desperate leap. It's a small, intentional gesture. An eye contact held a second longer, a playful message, a subtle compliment. It's confident, not performative. And the reason this gets a man's attention is because it's rare. Most people are so afraid of rejection that they hold back and become passive. A bold woman stands out because she knows rejection is not the end of her value. If it doesn't work out, she walks away with grace, not regret. Being bold also means expressing your standards clearly, not in a demanding or rigid way, but in a grounded, self-assured tone that says, this is what I need to feel safe, respected, and fulfilled. When you're not afraid to voice your boundaries, it tells a man you're not here to settle for scraps. And that energy makes him step up. Men rise to the level of the woman in front of them when she sets the bar with kindness and certainty. If you're scared to lose him by being honest about your needs, you've already lost the chance for a real connection. Boldness invites respect. It draws in men who are serious and repels the ones who are not. Another form of boldness is emotional openness. Letting someone see your heart, your dreams, even your fears, without turning it into a therapy session is incredibly brave. It's easy to hide behind humor, sarcasm, or surface-level talk. It takes courage to be real. When a man sees a woman who is both emotionally intelligent and unapologetically herself, he feels like he's connecting with someone rare, not someone performing a version of who she thinks she should be, but someone who's fully embodied. That level of authenticity creates a deep emotional imprint. It lingers in his mind long after the conversation ends. Boldness is also being okay with silence. You don't need to fill every space, reply to every message instantly, or constantly seek validation. A bold woman is okay with waiting, with holding space, with not knowing exactly what's next. She trusts her value so deeply that she can sit in that tension without falling apart. That's the kind of energy that makes a man chase, because it's not easy to find someone who is both strong and soft, open but grounded, interested but not needy. The truth is, boldness is a kind of quiet power. It doesn't scream, it doesn't demand. It just exists in how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you respond when things don't go your way. And when a man experiences that, when he realizes he can't manipulate you, impress you with surface-level charm, or box you into some category, he becomes curious, he becomes intrigued, and eventually, if the connection is right, he becomes hooked. Not because you chased him, but because you stood firm in who you are and gave him something real to meet. High standards don't push people away, they draw the right ones closer. There's a difference between being demanding and having standards. A woman with high standards isn't looking for perfection. She's not expecting a man to have it all figured out. What she expects is effort, respect, and consistency. She knows what she deserves, and she doesn't flinch when something falls short of that. That quiet confidence, that unshakable sense of self-worth is what turns heads and holds attention. Makes a man sit up straighter, think twice, and show up with more intention. Men become obsessed with women who don't make exceptions for bad behavior. The woman who doesn't ignore red flags because she's afraid of being alone. The one who doesn't stay silent when something feels off. The one who can enjoy someone's company without needing to be chosen to feel validated. That's rare. Most people are operating from fear. Fear of not being enough. Fear of being left. Fear of starting over. But when you meet someone who isn't led by fear, who can walk away with dignity if they're not being met, you don't forget them. You respect them, even if you don't fully understand them at first. Setting high standards isn't about having a long list of superficial traits. It's about emotional standards. How are you spoken to? How are you treated in private and in public? Does he follow through with what he says? Is he growing, learning, evolving? A woman who's clear on those things sends a message without saying much. She communicates with her actions. She won't chase, she won't beg, she won't try to earn love through proving herself. And that calm refusal to accept less than what aligns with her values creates a powerful sense of presence. When a man meets a woman like this, he has two choices: level up or fall away. And if he chooses to rise, it's not because she forced him, it's because something in him recognizes that she's worth it. That's when obsession begins. Because she didn't just give her time and energy away, she made him work for a connection. She made him show her his character, not just his charm. She wasn't impressed by flashy words or grand gestures alone. She watched how he moved, how he handled pressure, how he treated others, how he respected her time. That attention to the details is part of what makes her unforgettable. Men admire women who have boundaries, even if they test them. It's human nature to see how far we can go, whether we do it consciously or not. But when a man feels that he's dealing with someone who won't tolerate emotional laziness or inconsistency, he starts to think differently. He realizes that this isn't someone he can half show up for. This is someone who knows her value and, more importantly, acts like it. That's rare, and in a world full of people settling just to feel something, the woman who won't compromise her self-respect becomes the one he remembers. High standards also challenge a man to bring more of himself to the table. If he's used to easy validation, he might be thrown off at first, but if he's serious, if he's emotionally ready, he'll rise to meet the energy you bring, not because he feels forced, but because he feels inspired. He'll want to be better, not just to win you, but because your presence makes him see a higher version of himself. That's when real obsession begins, not with your looks, your words, or your approval, but with the way you make him feel about his own growth. And that's only possible when you hold your standards with strength and grace. Perfection is exhausting. It's also an illusion, and the more someone tries to project it, the more disconnected they often become. In dating, there's this idea that you have to look flawless, say all the right things, and hide anything that might make you seem too emotional, too complicated, or too human. But that kind of filtered performance doesn't create obsession, it creates pressure. A man might be impressed by perfection at first glance, but what he truly becomes attached to is authenticity. It's the woman who can laugh at herself, speak from the heart, and be real about who she is that stays on his mind. Authenticity creates connection. When you show up as your true self, quirks, imperfections, emotions, and all, you invite someone else to do the same. That emotional permission is powerful. It tells a man that he doesn't have to keep performing either. He doesn't have to always be strong or witty or composed. He gets to just be, and in that space he feels seen. And that feeling of being emotionally seen and accepted is something people rarely experience in a deep way. That's what creates obsession, not the woman who plays it perfectly, but the one who lets herself be fully alive in his presence. Most people wear masks, especially early on. They want to be liked, so they say what they think the other person wants to hear. They agree with opinions they don't share, laugh at jokes they don't find funny, or pretend to be easygoing when they're actually deeply sensitive. But that kind of inauthenticity always cracks. The moment something real happens, conflict, stress, emotional intimacy, the mask slips. And when that happens, the relationship starts to feel fake or unstable. A man doesn't fall in love with the performance. He falls in love with the truth underneath it. When a woman is honest about what she feels, wants, and believes, even if it's messy, it builds trust. He may not always agree with her, but he knows where she stands. He doesn't have to guess what she's thinking or walk on eggshells. She creates emotional safety just by being honest. And that kind of space is rare. It's comforting. It's compelling. It allows a man to exhale and show up in a more vulnerable way himself, which deepens his emotional investment. Authenticity also shows up in how you carry yourself. It's not just what you say, it's how you live. Do you follow your own path? Do you own your past without shame? Do you show up in sweatpants the same way you do in heels? When you're at ease with who you are, it gives others permission to be at ease too. You become a mirror that reflects acceptance instead of judgment. And when a man experiences that, he attaches emotionally. Because most people make him feel like he has to be someone else to be loved. You don't. Trying to be perfect usually comes from fear. Fear of not being good enough, fear of rejection, but that fear creates distance. A man might admire you, but he won't feel close to you. He won't feel connected to someone who never lets their guard down. It's the woman who can admit she's nervous, who can say, "I don't know," who can make mistakes and own them without shame. She becomes unforgettable. Not because she's flawless, but because she's real. And that kind of realness is what stays in a man's heart and mind long after the conversation ends. It makes him think of her in quiet moments, miss her in crowded rooms, and wonder what she's doing, not because she was the most polished, but because she was the most human. One of the most overlooked qualities that draws a man in and keeps him emotionally invested is appreciation. It sounds simple, But most people underestimate the impact of being genuinely seen and acknowledged. Men, just like anyone else, crave to feel valued, not just for what they do, but for who they are when no one's watching. When a woman consistently notices the small things, when she takes time to express sincere appreciation, she creates an emotional experience that's rare in today's world. And the truth is, people become obsessed with those who make them feel important in ways others don't. Men are often expected to perform, to provide, to protect, to take initiative, to lead, but they rarely hear "I see you" in a way that's not tied to performance. So when a woman genuinely appreciates his effort, his character, his intentions, it doesn't just stroke his ego, it touches something deeper. It tells him he's not invisible, that someone notices what he tries to hide and what he quietly gives without asking for recognition. And when appreciation comes from a place of presence, not just politeness, it makes him feel emotionally safe, respected, and seen. Appreciation doesn't have to be grand. In fact, it's most powerful when it's subtle and specific. A simple "I love how thoughtful you were with that," or "you really made me feel protected just now," can mean more to a man than generic praise or exaggerated compliments. Specific appreciation tells him you're paying attention, that your connection with him isn't shallow or distracted. And when a man feels like you notice what others miss, you become special in his eyes. You're not just another woman, you're someone who understands him on a deeper level. But this goes beyond just saying thank you. It's about appreciating him for things he may not even realize he needs credit for. Like how he handled a tough conversation, how he stood up for someone, how he stayed calm under pressure. It's about seeing the person, not just the result. When a man feels like you see him clearly, his struggles, his effort, his intention, he starts to associate your presence with relief and recognition. That emotional link grows stronger over time, and eventually it becomes something he doesn't want to live without. What's important here is that appreciation is not about flattery or manipulation. It's not about trying to get something from him. It's about showing gratitude for who he is when he shows up with heart. That kind of appreciation requires awareness. It means being present enough in the relationship to notice what's real, rather than getting caught up in fantasy or superficial expectations. And when you appreciate a man from that place of grounded presence, it makes him feel like he matters, not because he's trying to impress you, but because he's being himself. It also shifts the dynamic in a powerful way. Instead of the relationship being based on what you want from him, it becomes a place where he feels good just being near you, because your energy isn't full of demands, it's full of acknowledgement. And when a man starts associating you with feeling respected, admired, and appreciated, he begins to crave that connection more than anything else. That craving is what builds obsession, not the pressure to perform, but the safety of being enough. At the end of the day, men don't want to be needed out of lack, they want to be appreciated for the value they bring. When a woman leads with that kind of clarity and emotional intelligence, she builds a bond that no amount of games or strategy could ever match. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's unforgettable. Because true appreciation, when offered with honesty and intention, becomes the emotional glue that keeps him coming back, thinking of you, and seeing you as the woman who truly gets him. When it comes to creating deep, lasting obsession in a man, it's never about manipulation, pretending, or chasing. It's about showing up with strength, self-worth, and emotional depth. Each of these bold moves, being unapologetically yourself, maintaining mystery and challenge, expressing boldness with grace, holding high standards, embracing authenticity, and offering genuine appreciation, works together to create a powerful emotional experience. You're not just someone he enjoys, you become someone he feels, someone he respects, remembers, and craves more of. Because you're not trying to be chosen, you're choosing yourself first. And in doing that, you become the woman no man can forget.